Welcome everyone to tap in together with us today. I'm not even sure what the topic is going to be. I think it's going to be about healing, and I think it's also going to be about the world and the collective mind that we're all in. But let's see what happens. Welcome to you, Kingsley Dennis.
Thank you, Mana. And yes, I'm very happy to be here for this conversation, whatever we get around to speaking about.
Yeah. So you have quite the authorship. You've written many books, and the one that I read is Healing the Wounded Mind, the Psychosis of the Modern World and the Search for the Self. And we might talk a little bit about that, but also you really inspired me with also just the emails that you sent me around. Let this be a conversation, and it doesn't
Mm.
have to, because even a conversation that is so pure in its form and it's so necessary for us to have, it's like a
Mhm.
survival necessity to be in dialogue with others that can be corrupted by us thinking about, okay, I have to sell this book, or I have to frame it in a way so that people think something positive about him so I don't let him down. Just from my
Mhm.
side of the conversation, there can also be this kind of pressure. And you emailed me and you were like, none of that. None
Mhm.
of that. Let it just be, a free conversation. So yeah, that's why I'm not sure where this is going to go, but it's a good place to start.
It's a good place. It's an organic place because the conversation is fluid, and I don't want to be constrained by just speak about something I wrote in this one area. In fact, I don't think I've written X books. I've written one book in many forms. All the books are just one long conversation. And so the themes are similar. I'm weaving in and out. So I never want to say let's constrain ourselves to this part of the tapestry because the bigger tapestry is more important. So and again, we can just go in any direction that feels natural to us.
Mm. Yeah, and also the thing about the pressure to recognize that, did I get that right? The pressure around, like, then it has to be, you know, there are so many conversations out there, and often we want something. What do we want people to have, right? Sometimes there is that selling point in it as well, and I really don't like that.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of an inbuilt or unacknowledged pressure from both sides. If you're putting out a podcast or we're having a conversation, we want to perhaps there's maybe the back of the mind a commercial responsibility to feel that you've covered what the speaker wants to talk about. But also sometimes we think, well, we want to give something to the listener and we want for them to have come away with something. But we can't predict what the listener is going to pick up because everyone picks up something different. So we can say right off, we have no prejudgment about what we're delivering. And for you to take away whatever you wish to take away from this. And so we have no arrangement on both sides.
I like that. That's very freeing. I like that. And so you said you've written one book in many forms. What is that one book about then?
Well, I mean, it seems to me that and I think I would think that other probably writers or producers of work feels the same because you have a certain preoccupation. My sense, perhaps, is that what I write about is the wish to expand or open up our perception about the world around us, about reality, and about ourselves. In other words, what we see just through our eyes is not just the world that it is. And
Mm.
there's a lot more going on. We need to see the bigger picture, but we have to work on ourselves to see that. So I often talk about consciousness and social forces that impact our perception and perception management. But at the heart of it, I think it's a human journey. It's about opening and up and our developing our human perception so we can know ourselves better and therefore make our choices and our way through life better and live up to our responsibilities as human beings.
Yeah, just that.
In a nutshell.
In a nutshell. Yeah, it's quite a big, yeah. So healing the wounded mind definitely, definitely moved me, and because it's about me, but it's also about what I take to be me, right? What I think is my own thoughts, but it's actually perhaps implanted by, uh, yeah, what you call the wound in the
Mhm.
collective mind.
Yeah, I think before that, you see, before that, I'd written a lot more. I didn't. Mostly, I mean, I'm a positive person and I have a positive view about the future and the world. And at the same time, I'm a realist, but, I realize that humans are resilient. Up to that point, actually, I think Healing the Wounded Mind was a bit of a turning point because I tried to focus more on just the positive.
Mm.
And then I felt, well, we're coming to a point in life in general, and the whole world seemed to be taking a turn whereby there seemed to be more projection onto the world from within human beings, which meant, of course, if we can't see it within ourselves, we don't know what we're putting out. And it seemed like the world was mirroring that because, of course, we're an integrated participatory species. So we interact, we put out, we receive, we transmit, we receive. And it seemed like the world was going to go through a bit of a trauma. Now, I wrote the book, I think, 2019, so
Yeah.
I must have written it about 18 months before because that's the time lag on publishing, about 18 months.
Mm.
So, because, well, actually, when I look back at it, I think it came out just before the events of 2020 and those years that were traumatic. So I think it was kind of picking up on that in a way, which
Mm.
obviously I didn't know at the time. So I think it's timely and relevant. But yes, there's a trauma that I think we're going through on a collective level as well as individually, and we're seeing that now quite a lot in the world.
Mhm. Mhm. I can I can resonate with that. How I used to be more positive, like the I don't want to be the negative one here,
Mhm.
but you also want to speak the truth, right?
You do, and it became a point where I couldn't not speak it because obviously you have to be, you have to have your integrity, and I mean, I feel like I'm transmitting content. It's not
Mm.
like this is me. I'm putting it out, so I can't really block it, and it depends what I get. I feel like nudges, whatever I comes in, what feel I have to write about, or what I see in the world. And I don't, I don't think anything commercially. I can't think commercially. I'm a terrible promoter in that sense. And I can't say, I don't put out what I think people want. I don't pander to like a category, a genre, and that. I put out what feels natural. And I think it's probably less and less of people are doing that, especially in the world of, YouTube and commercial industries getting stronger. But I think we all have to speak the truth now to a large degree than they've ever before. Even if that means going against the word of your best friend or the feelings of those around you, you can't all walk in the same direction if you don't feel that's the correct direction.
Yeah. Oh, it is so needed. I feel such a yeah, resonance. I guess is the best word with what you're talking about. And if people are wondering what, I hope someone is wondering out there, what astrological archetype are you describing right now? It's the Cancerian one. And you have a lot of Cancer energy. You are a Cancer sun, but you have even more than that Cancer energy in your chart. And that is really, so we all have that, of course, somewhere in our chart. And it's where we really want to just be authentic and not, it should not be shaped in a certain way. And there should not be a certain deadline even, because maybe our work is not done then. So it's like a commitment to authenticity and to yeah what's really going on behind the scenes, so how cancer is related to the home, so how you are when you are relaxed at home, your true self, that kind of truth, to get that out there instead of having
Mhm.
mm, to train hard to become something that you're not really.
Yeah, or don't try to fake it. I think the key word is authenticity.
Yeah.
Um, And back around 2019, in fact, just around this time, I was asked by a magazine in December 2019 to write my predictions or my thoughts for 2020, the start of a new decade. And I wrote an essay which I called Consensus Reality Meltdown.
Oh.
We're going to see the meltdown of consensus reality, which, but before that, we all feel we're bound into a kind of agreement that we are forced to kind of adhere to, and we all more or less seem to agree on some form of what reality is. And for some reason, again, I just got the nudge to say, this consensus is going to break down, which of course in 2020 it did because of what happened on on the world stage and that and all the movements and shenanigans that got involved in that whole the whole years and that. And so then of course we don't have a consensus reality anymore. And it's breaking down. I think that the question of what is reality for us is an important question as well, because we've been forced to be authentic, to resonate with a reality that we feel, is our vibratory signature. It comes to us, this reality. And of course, now we're seeing a lot more disparate realities on the world stage. People claiming this or saying that and saying, trying to prove this, trying to prove that. And a lot of it is what I've termed it the theater of the absurd. It likes we are in a theater and people are trying to, perform this reality or that reality, and there's a lot of disagreement, which is part of the chaos which is going on because there's a lot of disparity between the authentic narratives, the controlling narratives, you could say, and our inner sense of like something is not quite right. It's not
Yeah.
fitting in. And so that reality meltdown, I think, is part of what we're moving through now, which is perhaps, I have to say, in a positive sense, a necessary process in
Mm.
order to move through it to find a new authentic self and a new authentic human being.
Mm. Yeah, and the beginning of that is even just recognizing it, even though it can seem very negative. Then it's like, well, we need to just see that what is going on. I think it's really very fitting the consensus meltdown of what we gather that to be astrologically as well, with the Capricornian, yeah, destruction. And wow, okay, so you're saying we don't have a consensus now? Did you say that?
Yes, it's well, we see before, there's always been a dominant narrative. Now there's the overarching dominant narrative for an epoch. Now, this is a large narrative, which it could be scientism. It could be, for example, hundreds of years ago, the ruling narrative was a religious one that the Earth is the center of the universe, and we had a very strict dominant narrative, and then the dominant narrative got overtaken by a scientific one, whereby because of the scientific revolution, we are not the center of the universe. The Earth is in a solar system which has a revolutions, etc. And so there's all the dominant narrative, and then which involves many aspects, ideological, political, and that. And so I think in the West, particularly in the last, 150 years, we've had a kind of a, a global narrative of the Industrial Revolution. We are industrializing ourselves. We're becoming, progressive. Technology is basically taking us forward, become a better civilization. We have so-called democracy. Those in power are tell us the truth, and all these kind of dominant narratives which intertwine, and it keeps a stability. And sometimes you get little fluctuations where some threads in that narrative fall away, but the general stability remains. The reason why I feel that we're in critical times now and important for the whole human civilization is because many of those threads in that narrative have become unwoven. We've lost trust in our authority institutions. We lost trust completely, I think, in financial institutions, political institutions, all those overarching narrative motors of the narrative are basically have lost their trust, they've lost their place, they're crumbling, they're desperate to maintain their power and position. And so we're seeing a lot of this unease in the human being being reflected in the world. And so that's why I think the narrative in general, the dominant narrative, is melting down because there's so many threads unraveling at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I like that. What you said about trusting the people in power. And then the question is, then who do we trust?
Well, this is the major thing is because we trust because we take in information. And that information is always more or less being controlled. The information was controlled first, let's say, by the church, by religions, and then by these, by the monarchy in the back in history, and then to the political institutions. because of media and telecommunications and the technology we have for people to communicate between themselves, these information channels are now multi-channel. They're not one way. Before, for example, when you had the television or the radio, you'd sit in front of it and just be a receiver. You could not respond back. You just absorbed it. So, if it's garbage in, it's garbage out, as they say.
Yeah.
So, but now you see we're communicating. That's why it's important to have conversation, and so we can have more trust in speaking our truth and listening to what we inherently feel, not just regurgitating opinions that have been pushed into us through propaganda, through the controlled media. Because we know, I mean, let's face it, we know most of the mainstream media are controlled by very, very few organizations. Media organizations control X TV channels, X video channels, X studios, X newspapers and magazines. And so the narrative is more or less controlled. We have to, like you said, the first stage is awareness. We have to have the responsibility to, and not having fear to break away from those, like say, those fast food information outlets, and then start to seek for ourselves what we feel resonates with ourselves as being more truthful. So the first step is awareness, and I think closing down a lot of those propaganda information channels and take some more responsibility about what we take in, because information at the end of the day is food, and what you eat, you are.
Yeah, what you eat, you are. Yeah, yeah. Oh, okay. And so you said now it's more of a conversation, like you don't just listen to it, you can dialogue with the information coming. But I don't know. I think you're referring to social media, right?
Yes, I mean, obviously that's the main channel, social media. And ironically, the more that we're on social media, the less people actually talking in the street as well. That's one of the pushbacks, which is unfortunate because we kind of have substituted most of our, I mean, in general, a lot of our conversations online. But there's a lot of good conversations online. Like everything, after a while, it gets kind of hijacked, taken over, and then a lot of channels come in which have their agenda and that, and even the alternative media has been hijacked to a certain degree by big names, people who have their agenda. But conversation is important, and because we can talk back, we can have a dialogue, and we're
Mm,
not just receiving in. And that's why we have responsibility to respond, not just react.
mm,
Not react from our, I suppose, superficial standpoint. When we get our emotions triggered, our thoughts triggered, we need to reflect on it and say, how do I want to respond to that? And I think social media still has a space and a capacity to be a place for that.
mm. Yeah, I'm looking forward to
Mm,
some kind of upgrade there that's actually matching those needs, because I feel that for sure, I don't know if it's in my personality or if it's just the time that have led us here, that when I hear something, I want to engage with it. When I hear a discussion or whatever, I feel like I want to be part of it and I want to say something back and I want to ask questions rather than just receiving it. But then I'm one of the ones who's really disillusioned by social media, and I cannot stand it. It's hurting me somehow. It's hurting
hmm
my personality. If I was just pure Zen, I don't think I would mind. But my personality it's too sensitive for me to be um so seen and not seen, liked, not liked, all of that. So I don't know how to be in that conversation is what I'm saying.
hmm
I don't know
Yeah.
how to do that, because where can I? Because when there is a media, there's not usually not a place where you can comment. That would be on social media if you wanted to do that.
Yes, I mean, we have to choose our exposure with responsibility. I mean, on my personal experience, the last couple of years, I put out quite a few videos where I was discussing things and that. And then at the end of last year, I just stopped. I closed it down, and I haven't. Only like last month, I put out my first video in 1 year. Is that I realized that social media was becoming swamped and overwhelmed with, all these, and I felt I didn't want to add my voice to it. I think what you're doing is different because my voice, I was me, I was talking, and talking about certain things. What you're doing is having a conversation with different people. That's very different. But what I felt personally was I don't want to keep showing my face and just talking
Right.
because I'm just doing what a lot of other people are doing, and already I felt it was over swamped, overwhelmed the media sphere. So I stepped back. And I think we need to reflect on what we're doing, uh, in how we're doing it. So if we feel like we want to adjust ourselves, this self-adjustment doesn't occur, or let's say it should occur more, self-adjustment, that we know if we're contributing or just being there in the crowd. And we all want to contribute because that's, I think, human nature. We are, kind of participatory creatures. We want to contribute. So yeah, I think we have to think about that. Social media has a space, but we need to, speaking personal, of course, not take things too personally if we feel like we're not receiving the feedback or something, because this happens a lot in this space. Just feel that you want to be there and do your role, and then be happy with that.
Yeah, yeah. Apropos what we were, saying
Mhm.
at the beginning, and I really like that attitude. And that's the only way that I can be a podcaster is to live by what you just said. Like I put my thing out, and what happens happens. But being on social media, I'm talking about like Instagram or Facebook.
Mm.
That's where I got into a big paranoia for myself. Um, because this is different. This is me sending out a video. What happens happens. But being a constant profile on there, I feel like I can constantly be, yeah, the thing about being liked or not liked. And I think that's too risky for my personality. Right? There's too much at stake in that feeling.
Well, it's a part of human nature, to want to feel worth. I
Mm,
think, want to feel self-worth. And I think that's what we're looking for in this time. And I think but perhaps that's part of what this trauma could be based around, is that we don't know how to. I think a lot of people are feeling, what's my place in the world? And for example, there's a famous historian. I don't like to over talk about him. There's a famous Israeli historian who has spoken a lot about technology and people. And he said that people are going to find themselves irrelevant in the future, the irrelevancy of the human species because of AI and technology, and because of jobs being taken away. If someone doesn't have a job and doesn't have a way of feeling worth, then they feel irrelevant. Now, I can see that point. I
mm,
don't overly agree with it because I think they're overplaying the role of technology and underplaying human resilience.
mm,
But I do feel the central core message is important to take in that how do we feel of worth? How do we estimate, or how do we feel human value? And that for me is going to be one of the core aspects of moving into the future, because we're surrounded by inanimacy, inanimate objects, inanimate structures and algorithms, and we're moving increasingly through a kind of a techno-enabled landscape. Now, there's an analogy. Um, Like, there's a poem in the 1980s, an English poet called Heathcote Williams wrote a poem about the increase in cars. He called it Autogeddon. And he said that if an alien was passing over the Earth and just had a look down on the Earth, they would feel that the cars were the dominant species, and that humans were like batteries, because when they entered a car, the car moved. When they got out, the car stopped. So humans are like batteries to cars. So I updated that analogy, and I put out in my writings, even if the alien kind of popped, had a look on Earth nowadays, they'd feel that that technological infrastructure would be the dominant species, because the world is becoming terraformed or changed to enable more, to facilitate technological landscape. So we have all the masts, the antennae, the Wi-Fi, the 5G masts. We have, of course, all the algorithms moving through our space. They control how we move, how we fly, everything. And humans are like secondary species. So I can understand the point of view that if you see it like that, then humans are going to question their value. Am I relevant? Does the world need me? And I think we're going to see this in the upcoming years. People are going to have to readjust to find the real worth and real value, to find their home, to find how to come back home. And I mean that in a kind of metaphoric sense. It could, home is where we feel that, we are really of worth. And I think beingness, how to feel to be, these questions are going to come up in this transition of traumatic overhaul, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I think we're really finding those that toxicity in the collective mind, that where you're saying it's like, I feel something is wrong. This is not how it's supposed to be. I want to just supply with a quote from your book. Is that okay?
Mhm, sure.
Um, because I think it's right on theme, where you say a major anxiety for many people is the fear of anonymity, of being a nobody. The response to this often comes in the role of attention seeking, which is a diluted form of seeking acknowledgement and recognition. We use others as mirrors for that which we are seeking. We want to love ourselves as well as to receive love from the world. And this is our great undertaking as well as our great confusion. Let me just pause there. So it's so natural, right? It's this natural need that has been taken advantage of in the algorithm, for example. I mean, we want to be loved and we want to give love. And so, but in how does that look digitally?
Hmm. Yes, I do feel like I say I'm positive. I feel my sense is that the human species is a noble species, and the majority of people you meet are good people. They want to help you. There is, they give out forms of love in different ways, help, assistance, affection, understanding. But of course, on the world stage, a lot of events have been catalyzed by the minority of people because they want power. So power corrupts the flow of love, um, or can corrupt the flow of love, which often does. But I think yes, human beings, because we are a community. Well, many years ago, we grew up in smaller communities where you went out. My mum would say that when she went out, she didn't lock the doors because they lived in a small community. Everybody knew each other. They would share what they had, you know, and they would just you'd mix that way. Of course, times change. We have to understand that we don't live in the past. We need to move with the times. Yet we've been pushed. There's the increase of urbanization. We don't know who our neighbors are. If in the big cities, you don't know who your neighbors are. They don't speak to you. Um, I've always liked to be more in the countryside where I go out and I say hello to people I meet on the street. I know that's not always possible, but I think the sense of community has been shifted drastically in the last, well, especially in the last 50 years. And so now, for now, at the moment, I think the online space has become a substitute for community.
Mm.
But when you're dealing people digitally or from afar, it's much easier to um, slip into bad habits. It's easier to be abusive, to troll people, and that because you can just close the computer off and you feel you're safe. But if you feel like you've really annoyed your neighbor, you think, my God, they're going to come around and bang on the door and I've got a problem. But if you shout to someone and it's much easier, and so it's tempting to give away to our worst habits online. That's important. But underlying that, and I think underlying a lot of this, sometimes underlying a lot of the abusive behavior is just a need to be recognized. Is that you're shouting because you feel no one's listening or you want to be heard. Um, and so I don't think majority of behavior, I don't feel it's completely coming from a negative area. I think it's coming from an area of need and longing, but we don't know how to express it. Or we get frustrated and we're anxious. And this time of anxiety is the time of most delicate, but we have to, really be aware of how we behave. So there is a need. There's a need to feel like we're loved, we're understood, and that's why there are many sub-communities developing of people have a like resonance of their needs and hobbies and that. But when you amplify anything, when you scale up, you always get more problems. So in a local community, you can handle differences, you can have a conversation and work it out. When you scale up to a global thing, it's much more difficult because you react in ways that you don't know how to amend. So.
Yeah, but also you so talking about being a nobody versus what like being a famous person. I think that has to go into the equation of what you're talking about there because uh, and when we're scaling it up, it's also that people. with power who's being seen more,
Hmm.
and then you have all of these people in the outskirts just feeling marginalized even online.
Hmm. And yeah, and one of the dangers there, as you said before, is that that need again gets exploited.
Yeah.
So, certain structures of power, let's say, they understand that humans want to be liked and they want others to see them as good people. So, if the majority follows a narrative, the minority who disagree with that find it much harder to speak out against it because they feel like maybe they'll be ostracized or their friends and family won't like them or and they'll say, well, everyone believes that, everyone knows that. And if you counter argument that, well, I don't think that's true, and I don't know that,
Mm,
then you then are in this danger zone of feeling like you're nobody, and that no one's listening to. And so sometimes it's much easier just to go along with the crowd, even if you know it's the wrong direction. And that gets exploited. It got exploited, a few years ago in many different narratives that were coming out. Um, and so again, it's became so it is harder to stand up to your truth. And therefore, if you realize that that integrity is more important than being liked or being, then you can go there. But you have to break that barrier first and realize that not everybody's going to agree with what you're saying. But you will find what you need in other areas.
mm, mm. You'll find what you need in other areas. What do you mean by that?
Well, if you're following the crowd, but you inherently know that you're wrong, that will eat away at you, and
Right.
you'll feel worse. Even if you find just a small group of people who say, "Yeah, I can understand you and I agree with that," it's in quality, not quantity, because the quantity of falsity will never overtake a tiny drop of authenticity.
Mm, yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. It's like it's about the soul, isn't it? It's like I'm doing the right thing for who I really am, something more essential in me.
It is, and that's important. It's important language to express because one of the senses of being a nobody is that my sense is that we've established a disconnection with the sacred, and we can call that in many ways. The sacred, you could have a religious understanding of the sacred, you could have your god or gods, you can have your source, your absolute, your sacred energy, your earth energy. I mean, there's different ways. Everyone finds a way to understand their own connection to the sacred. But that's been, for me, that's been increasingly disconnected and cut off, especially during the Industrial Revolutions and the last 100 years. But in the last few decades, increasingly so. It's as if, I mean, hypothetically, it's as if, those parties in power don't want humans to have a connection to their own sacred because that gives us power. That gives us our own source of battery. We don't need to be plugged into the global narrative. We can be plugged into our own sacred. And that gives us resilience. It gives us life sustainability. So a lot of the dialogues and conversations out there, they're missing words like soul, sacredness, spirit. And I don't mean the kind of a lot of these words have been hijacked as well and commercialized. But we know you know what I'm talking about. The authentic spirit, sacredness of life and the cosmos and our connection to the cosmos. This is the conversation which is increasingly important because we realize inherently we're not a nobody. We're a part of the whole cosmic tapestry.
Yeah, see, that's another truth. And that's why
Mhm.
why I make that division a little uh, categorically is like saying my personality does not like being on social media. If I was completely identified with who I really am, then it wouldn't be a problem. But then it's not really made for who I really am. It's kind of made for the person who has all of these preferences. Actually, I want to ask you about the perennial tradition
Mhm.
that I know that you take up in this book that we're talking about, but also other books, right? Because you also have the modern seeker, and maybe also other books where you talk about the perennial tradition and yeah. So what you're saying is that I'm going to quote you again. That's easier.
Mhm. Okay,
To
sure.
try to explain what it says.
Mhm.
Okay, the perennial tradition evolves within people. And by evolving, it helps people to evolve. This activity can be seen to operate through the following stages: awareness, preparation, and perception. Awareness, our predicament and our limited perspective. Awareness of that. And then preparation is about working upon ourselves and walking the path. And perception is about the gaining of objective understanding. And so this is the ancient wisdom tradition you're talking about. Um, yeah, maybe that fits in the conversation here.
It does, because obviously, as I mentioned at the beginning, the thread of conversation is all about raising our perception and awareness so we can, I suppose, feel our sense of worth in the world. Now, the perennial tradition is again, we're using terms of reference here, but I hope that everyone will understand. It's this flow of knowledge and wisdom or energy that has run through all epochs and on all religions. Because at the heart of each religion, there's an essential truth or an esoteric aspect. And sometimes these flows have gone through religions because of the epoch of the time that they've used it like an umbrella or a vehicle to move through. There's wisdom all the time. I mean, there's shamanic paths, there's other sacred paths that they've always had access because, as the Persian poet Rumi said, there's many ways to climb a mountain, yet the view at the top is the same.
Mm.
So there's many paths or vehicles we can take, but when you have a glimpse of the truth or higher reality, it's the same for everybody. We interpret it differently,
Mm.
maybe because of our cultural programming or cultural language or the path we use. We use shamanic terms, or we used some religious terms. So there's a wisdom that flows, and for me, that wisdom comes through the cosmos. It's this whole web of life that there's a source, there's a creative energy there's an intelligence in the cosmos, let's say, and that intelligence and that energy flows into the earth. It's all part of our evolving movement. So I mean, sometimes we get caught up in labels, and that again is something which gets exploited in human civilization. We start to fight each other because of the labels we are wearing, like we're fighting ourselves because of the coats we are wearing, rather underneath we are all human beings. So the perennial tradition is a term that is this perennial means everlasting, wisdom flows. And if we can tap into that, and there's different ways to tap into it, we find that in essence, what these wisdom flows are encouraging is the human being to develop their perception and awareness, and to develop an awareness beyond just a life on this. We are more than just a human body. We are, an immortal soul that has contact with the higher self, the higher cosmos. If we can start to communicate with that, we start to receive intuitive wisdom, which is beyond books. And this is, I think, always been at the heart of all life. There's an intuitive cosmic intelligence and wisdom which is there for the tapping into. And it's flowed through all ages on this earth in all ways. But the doors to it have been increasingly closed by institutional power because of the wanting to manage social management and control life. And so through this human perception, the more that we perceive the bigger picture, the less we trust these, terrestrial structures of power. And I think that's the issue which a lot of is in play at the moment. I feel there's a lot more awakening going on, still a lot more to come. But there's this double pressure. There's pressure top down to close off our awakening, because when it comes, our access will be, we don't need these power institutions. We get our intuition from elsewhere.
Can you say that again about the two pressures? I didn't get that.
Well, there's like a pressure coming down from the top,
Yeah.
because awakening often comes from the bottom up. It works through the organic realm. It works through human beings, and so there's this kind of natural organic energy. But obviously, terrestrial power, like earthly power, material power, is top down.
Mm.
It's trying to always suppress, to kind of control the narrative, control your behavior, control what you think, getting to your mind, as it were. And so this artificial power or secondary power is top down. It's trying to push out this organic power, because organic wisdom, because it knows that once this starts to become more predominant organic wisdom, intuitive knowing and understanding, we won't be listening to these artificial secondary power structures.
And that's why I think it's so powerful to talk about a wounded mind, a wounded collective mind, because people on top are also just everyday people with an organic wisdom. I mean, each of them. Wouldn't you say?
Well, they have access to it because true wisdom is the only real democracy.
Mm.
You tap into the wisdom according to your capacity to receive it. It's never closed off. It's we who are closed off. So really, our capacity to receive it is what's important, which is why I always talk about we need to raise our perception, our awareness, because then we can be more open and receptive to this great, understanding, intuitive intelligence. Um, but of course, those in power, they have the same capacity if they wish to use it. In fact, I mean, it's quite well known in psychological terms that most people who are in power are sociopaths.
Mm.
Or, because in order to hold on to
You have
power,
to be. You have to be
exactly,
to get the job.
yeah, you have to be to want that job and to hold on to it and to do most. I mean, I think a lot of people in that position of high power are compromised. They've been blackmailed or they have, they're sociopaths and they're fed their sociopathic behavior. Maybe they want large amounts of attention or power. Um, and so yes, they're sociopathic and so they're going to be naturally closed off to intuitive wisdom. But it's there. It's there for everybody.
Mm. And when we are not accessing the intuitive wisdom, is that what you call the lesser reality?
Yeah, I call this world we see, the material world, I call the lesser reality. And I think part of the wounded mind is that we've been pushed more and more into a materialist worldview. And then this goes hand in hand with the increase in our technological development, the decline in spiritual adherence or spiritual systems of understanding. So, we've been told that, well, technology is the future. You can live for much longer, eventually be able to live forever if you be able to upload your mind, your consciousness to an AI cloud. I mean, who wants to be immortal in a material body? I mean, or material structure? That sounds more like hell to me.
Yeah.
Because the soul at one point will want to move on and continue the endless journey or adventure. But if you're trapped in a materialist Faraday cage, you can't get out. So I think one of the great dangers of the wounded mind is that we've been pushed and pushed into a materialist narrative, and we're losing the sense of smell and texture and understanding of this you know, intuitive wisdom, intuitive understanding. And that's closing people down. And I think that's part of the anxiety, it's the wounding. Uh, for many people, perhaps there isn't a way to express it. I'm expressing it in my way by using this language. A lot of people will feel anxious, depressed, losing worth or value. They won't maybe depressed, they won't see a point for the future. And that for me are all indications of the human spirit being closed down, putting a Faraday cage where spiritual influences or wisdom influences can't get into this structure or materialist cage.
Yeah, it's so depressing. And I don't even have to imagine that far. I mean,
Mhm.
I get it. On a day-to-day basis, I can unfortunately tap into that. Um, and but then, we're talking about healing the wounded mind, and then we know what to do, right? We know we can, employ certain spiritual practices or however we want to get back into contact with what's, yeah, what we really are.
Mhm.
Like,
Well, we have the antidote within us.
yeah.
We are our own solution. It doesn't even have to, we don't have to adhere to a spiritual belief system. That's a big step for many people who haven't been accustomed to it. For me, it's just a tiny change of mind.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, there's a story.
Don't
I,
censor yourself. I feel you're
no,
censoring
I'm
yourself.
trying to remember myself. That's the
Okay.
thing. Trying to, yeah, I'm trying to remember. There's a short kind of tale that you know. that these monkeys within these trees, and they were kind of playing in the trees and that. And one little monkey who was a bit more kind of curious, he looked up and he said, "Hey, I can see my God up there. There's a God up there. We're not alone. Hi, God." And then the monkey tried to tell all the other monkeys, there's a God up there. There's something up there. And all the monkeys said, don't be rubbish. Don't be you're crazy. Just come and play with us and swing through the trees. But the monkey kept on saying, no, there's something up there. And then, and then the monkey said, God, you do recognize me, no? And the monkey's God said, yes, I know you're there. And the monkey said, I'm tired of being a monkey. I want to be like them down there, the humans. Could you make me human? And God said, well, since you recognize me, I'll do you a favor. Boom. The monkey became a human. And then the monkey human realized, I'm a human, but I've still got a monkey mind. And then the monkey human said, God, please, I am human, but I've still got a monkey mind. Can you change my mind? And God said, I'm sorry, that's something you have to change yourself.
Oh, back to us.
Yeah. We can change other things, but we've got to change our mind. And it's how we look at the world. We don't have to go to a retreat or start a series of exercises. We just have to look at the world slightly different. Just change, just a simple millimeter, literally, change the way we think and start to say, well, you know, what do I want from the world? How's the world going to nourish me? And start to realize that this material world isn't everything.
Ah,
We have a soul. We all have souls. We're all part of something much greater. And we've got to find ways to give ourselves worth and value. And once you start thinking about that, that's the first stage I mentioned from that quote, awareness. Once you start thinking about that, then the world changes. You won't see the world again. You won't see the world in the same way again.
mm,
And then you go to the second stage, which is preparation. Like, well, what kind of things can I change in my life to kind of to suit me better? They can be
mm,
small things. You change your daily habits, you go out for walk, you visit places of nature or sustainability, you have conversations, you turn off the news, you close your TV down, you know, you stop believing opinion and start to form your own sense of self, your own sense of what's true, and not listen to your own inherent detector inside yourself. All these small things are preparation, the second stage, which then, if you do them often enough, it's like exercising a muscle. At first our muscles are weak because we're not using them. Use them to lift something again and again, your muscle more, it gets more growth. So awareness gets more growth once we practice it through small items of preparation. And that leads us to the third stage, which is perception. By increasing our awareness, then we start to have an inflow more of this intuitive understanding. And then we start to expand our perception quite naturally, organically. You won't notice it. It's not like switching a light switch and everything just changes overnight. It's an organic growth. And over time, if you change your habits, change how you see them and respond to the world, you'll realize that gradually you will start to develop your range of perception.
ah, beautiful. There you just got the three stages there. Wow, yeah. And so really, I caught on to thinking for oneself, or thinking for myself. It's a big one. And sometimes you could think, is that even possible? So much that we are a part of a group mind, but at least it's more possible than it has been. And so I just signed up for being part of some kind of experimental vaccine. And I know saying that is sending us back into the whole vaccine themes. But there, yeah, at that time during COVID, I was also like completely confused about what to do. Listening to all of these voices, I did not know what to do, and I just chose something. Uh, and and now here I had the option, and I was like, uh, again, I was like, who should I ask, right? Who should I ask about this? But then, with many questions like that, I realized they are just gonna have all their different opinions.
Hmm.
All I can do is like take in, would this be something that I would want for myself? That's all I can do.
Hmm. Yeah, and it was a time of great chaos and great awakening because it just boom, that moment you mentioned, like from 5 years ago, there was a lot of a lot of great grand narratives being forced upon humanity all at
Yeah.
once. And a lot of people, again, some people thought, well, I question this, but everyone else is going in this direction. And also there were restrictions. There was, and and that when you start to see that, you smell something not quite right when something's being forced. And intuitively, I knew something was wrong. From more or less the beginning. And in fact, I wrote a book in 2020 called Hijacking Reality, which came out in February 2021, so quite quickly. It's called the Reprogramming and Reorganization of Human Life. When great big institutional structures try to reprogram and reorganize these aspects of life, which pushing people into more technology and more materialistic restrictions, then you know that there's a different agenda behind it. And but it's again, if you work on your awareness and which then affects your perception, you come to these realizations more naturally or quickly. Sometimes it takes people more time to find a realization, which is why in this ever-changing world with a lot of restrictions and interventions and I think I would call them intrusions into the human being. They're
And
trespassing.
that's the thing. That's the thing. It's like, so I'm thinking this is a good idea, but the thought may not be mine. I have that from
Mhm.
your book.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but then you're talking about realization, and then I feel okay. Then that's different. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's two types that basically, we can quite brutally and briefly put it into say there's two types of knowing. One is
Two types of
conditioned
of what?
knowing,
Oh,
knowing. There's conditioned knowing and intuitive knowing. Conditioned knowing is stuff that we get put into us at school. We get told this is right, this is whatever. This is what we believe now in science, in medicine, in politics. We get told the narrative of the time and we get told that and then we regurgitate it to pass the exams and then we regurgitate it in life through our opinions. I believe this because I was told it by someone at the head of a classroom. And then after that, you get told it because I got told it on television. I got told it by a politician, by a lawyer. This is conditioned knowing. Then, which comes in directly, it's forced, it's an intervention. Then there's intuitive knowing, which no one can intervene with that transmission
mm,
because it comes from the heart of the cosmos to the heart of you. They can't hijack it through Wi-Fi or satellite. It's beyond, it's on a different frequency completely. And when you receive on that frequency, it's an inner knowing, and it's beyond the bounds of cultural conditioning or cultural programming. And that, I think, is what is innately natural to the human being to be in contact with.
so you just have to discern that. You have to know what is what is
Yeah,
condition and what is my
yeah.
intuition.
I mean, we have some ability. I mean, intuition. Again, some people have intuition, but they deny it. For example, sometimes if people play a game with you and say, "I'm going to spin a dice. Tell me what number comes up," and the first number that comes in your head, you often reject it.
Yeah.
You think, "No, I'm going to think
Have
about
that.
that for a while." Okay, it's the first number. It's the intuitive response. Boom, this is often correct. But
Mhm.
people throw it out the window, and so that immediacy, that gut, we call it a gut reaction,
Mm.
because the brain of your gut. So that gut reaction, that immediacy, is part of the intuitive knowing. So we should trust that more. Then we have thing when we have another organ to help us with, and that's called conscience.
Mm.
Not consciousness, conscience.
Got it.
There's something inside us that we instinctively know if we've done something wrong.
Yeah.
Then we try and hide it up. We try and hide it. We try to make excuses for it. We try to rationalize it. No, I did that. I had to do it. In the end, it's going to be okay. I had to do it. But there's something in you, that niggling little person inside going, no, 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 no.
Mm.
That's your conscience. And when you start to feel that, that also is part of the intuitive kind of understanding of the body.
Okay, the intuitive understanding of the body, the conscience is part of that. Yeah. So you're saying that operates on the same kind of level where it's part of that more essential you.
It is because sometimes your intuition, you could ignore it. That gut feeling, that I know the number, but I'm gonna I can't say it. I'll say something else. Your intuition, you can bypass it quite easily, and it goes quiet. Your intuition doesn't push you. If you don't want to listen to it, it's like, okay, I'll be quiet. But your conscience is like, it's a bit, it's a bit of a different tool. The conscience will nag at you.
Yeah.
So that that if you're not going to listen to your intuition, your conscience will say, well, I'm not going to go away so easily. You can rationalize all you want, but I'm still going to make you pay for it.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. Uh, uh, Kingsley Dennis, I have a few more things that I want with you. I have a lot
Mhm,
more things I want with you, but for this hour, for this 1 hour,
mhm.
I am hoping you're gonna come back when I read one of more of your books. Why did you actually recommend me The Modern Seeker? I want to read that for next time. But
Just the email you sent to me and the sense I picked up that you were an intuitive, empathic person, and you were wanting to delve at aspects of inner knowing and that. So I just seemed I mean, it's an older book, so I mean, there's no need to promote it now, and I don't promote books anyway. I'm terrible at that, but I just felt that there's a book that maybe you would feel connected with because I didn't want to make you read a book on technology or something which maybe you don't wish to. So it was a personal recommendation, that was all.
you're so kind. I like that.
Mm,
Yeah, but no, it's good with personal recommendations because you have that whole library of yours.
mm,
So there's okay, but anyway, for this hour, I have two more questions. I want to look at your chart a little bit with you and talk about that, but also wanted to just like because I felt you gave me something just before we started recording, and I wanted the listeners to have that as well. Just your own journey from being in the academic world and then choosing another life.
mhm,
I'm sorry. I just read about Eliphas Levi's biography, his life. The French magician, and he was like he just lacked. He just was missing the last third of his to become a priest
mhm,
in the Catholic Church, and then he did something else. And then I just
mhm.
thought, this is sometimes the journey where you go for something, and then you realize, no, I don't even want to be on top if then I have to compromise so much.
Yeah, it's true. I often joke that I'm an ex-academic. I'm not even sure if I ever felt like I was a true academic. I went into academia because A, I liked communicating and I liked teaching with students. And also I like to investigate and research. So I don't know, self-researched. I didn't do any courses. I went in to do my PhD and they said, in a PhD you have to take this course and this course is, part of it. And I didn't. I said, no, I'm doing a pure research PhD. I'm not, and in the research I incorporated, quantum physics, quantum biology, sociology, everything. And I didn't do any of these statistical courses that they wanted me to do because I'm just a bit of a self-taught. But yes, and I love teaching, but teaching changed as well because the university said you can't fail any student because they are paying, they pay their fees, and if you fail them, we lose our points on the table of success. So even if a student completely plagiarizes, which they did do, you have to let them do it again and again and again until they pass. So I thought the system's not right, and I wasn't feeling it was freedom for me that I wanted to go in. And I know that my feeling was that a lot of people start to move up the ladder in their career, whatever career it is, and then you get to a point where you feel you've got too much to lose by getting out. You know,
Yeah.
Especially if you've built up your credit. You've got a credit card, you've got a mortgage,
Right.
you've got things to pay off every month. And there's always things we've got to pay off every month, such as a Zoom account we have to pay off every month, and we have to, we have to pay so many things. But the thing with the digital world also is that these things accumulate much quicker, you know. And so you got to pay your insurance on your car, insurance on the house. You got to pay for this, you got to pay for that. You got to pay your monthly bills, and so you can't back out.
Mm.
Now I got to a point where I was very self-sufficient. I don't spend much in life. I don't need much in life materially, and so I thought, well, if I'm going to move up this path, I either give it my all because I was taught by my father, if you're going to do something, do it well. Whether you like it or not, if you choose to do it, you've got to do it to the best of your ability. Otherwise, don't do it.
Mm.
And I thought, well, I don't want this. I want my freedom, and freedom more value to me. So I left the academia and I went freelance, and I'm poorer for it, but much richer for it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I get the sense of that. And yeah, it's such an interesting point. I think many people can relate to that. Where that's too much to lose now. I've
Mhm.
gotten this far, and I just need that one more year. And but then so that's what makes it even more powerful to choose something else. It's like
It is, and I should add that it's that sense of I've invested so much in it, I can't walk back.
yeah,
It's not just in a like a physical path, like a career. It's also in our belief systems.
yeah,
If we've invested 20, 30 years in believing in something, and you come to a point where your conscience or information that you've received thinks, actually, what I believed in was wrong, you
yeah,
often feel, but I'm not going to backtrack now because I've put 30 years of my life into this. I'm not going to say that I was wrong. For me, that's perhaps even worse
yeah,
because you know that you've had a belief, opinion, or some path that you've come to realize it's wrong, but you've invested so much, it's so difficult to backtrack.
yeah. Oh,
That's part of the wounded mind as well, is that a lot of cases we feel like, oh, I got it wrong, but I'm not going to say anything now.
mm,
I'm going to live with it. And what you live with is a wound.
ah, live with it and keep convincing yourself in a way. This is gonna work out.
Yeah. But the wound will never heal because you haven't dealt with the wound.
Mm. And so dealing with the wound would be to choose something else, even though.
The wound, yeah, to deal with the wound is to say that in the end of the day, you're going to gain more value, more peace of heart, and more worth if you admit your own authentic truth.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So that is bringing us so much more value. Yeah. Yeah. Even though we live in a materialistic world, right? So I think that's what is confusing sometimes. It's not that obvious. Um,
Mhm. I mean, we have to live in a material world. This is the realm we live in.
yeah.
So, it's not like throw it all away and go and live in a cave. We have to live with it, but of course, we have to learn how to navigate it in the most balanced way. And I think the world is out of balance right now. That's part of the issue. And we have to find our own personal balance because the world is not going to give us a balance for us. The world is not going to solve the monkey mind for us. We are going to have to solve it
Mm,
for ourselves, and then we do it for yourselves, it emanates around you. You can help people around you just by showing them through your own actions. Don't have to tell them or don't have to force them. Just be your authentic self, and that will naturally emanate the energy around you for others to see and pick up if they can pick up on it.
mm. And then I think some of us may get some help in our astrological DNA, in our personality. Just like for me, it's really hard to pretend. It's really that is the hard thing, it's
Mhm,
that is the hard thing is to pretend. And sometimes I wish I was better at that. Just keep it in, Mana. Just don't say
mhm.
that. It's gonna ruin the whole thing. But anyway, just a little bridge to the astrology here, because I'm now looking at your chart and it's big, and I think that could relate to you as well because you have so much Cancer energy, and that really wants you to stay with yourself. I don't have your time, right, of birth,
No,
so
I don't have my time either.
none of us.
Mm, no, I think my parents were such in shock they didn't record the time. Um,
Okay. um so actually so I'm not sure about the moon, so I don't want to say so too much, but
mhm.
you were born close to an eclipse and you have your sun there close to your south node and other stuff in Cancer. And I actually, don't do this at home. It's not to compare people to other people, but I just call it an intuition. I just got this feeling that I wanted to just share with you that you're born only, I think it's 3 days after, and that you're born after you're of course further than him. No, anyway, you're born close to a famous Danish guy who reminds me of you. And this, I mean, but he's not spiritual, but um, he's called Mads Brygger, and he's behind the documentary the Black Swan. I don't know if you heard about that.
I've heard not the documentary. I know there's a film about it, but not a documentary. No, Black Swan. Is that about the anomalies that? The black swan, as in the economic black swan, where you can have an anomaly that changes everything.
I guess so. I'm not even sure about the metaphor there.
Uh,
Yeah, I mean, it's like someone who's undercover, undercover, undercover. Anyway, it's important that it's a documentary because it's
mm,
like reality, but then it's you can almost not think that it is so, but then a lot of people know that this is going on and they just don't, it's just the first documentary where it comes out because there are so many people who's working in the shadows and reporting. Anyway, it's really like an underground thing coming up into the light. And I think he's, if you look him up, Mads Brygger, he's like he's a Danish filmmaker, but he has this media that's called the Letter of Freedom, and
mhm,
it's like a newsletter. It's like a news media, and what they do is like they attack every time there's something that seems off. They
mhm,
attack the authorities and the politicians, and so people are like afraid of them because the
mhm,
truth is going to come up, and they've made so many things where people have lost because the truth came out. And what would, like, if that didn't happen, right? It was just the toxicity would just have continued. So anyway, you were born close to each other, and I feel that there's some of that same taste in your charts,
mhm.
that um like the truth needs to prevail, and otherwise you die.
Like shining a light in the dark to show up the thing, to show up the truth. No.
Exactly. And we're not
Mhm,
safe otherwise. So it's also, the Cancerian about being safe. It's like it's not true safety if we're not being, if it doesn't come out.
mhm.
What do you feel about that? I know you don't know him, so it's a little hard to maybe.
No, I mean, I'd like to find that documentary Black Swan, but
Yeah.
yes, I mean, the Cancerian is it wants security and it wants a genuine home. So you could say that, I'm trying to find a way back home for myself and for others by highlighting what paths are wrong, what paths are untruthful,
Yeah.
like navigating with a searchlight to find your way back home.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah.
And I have this behind me. I just noticed it now on the video. This is a wall hanging which I always take with me. Every time I move house, I take it with me. It was given to me by a Czech friend, so it's in Czech.
Okay.
Um, so if any Czech listeners or readers are watching this, I can't read it out because I can't speak Czech. It says the motto of this house is "Things in life are not things." No, the best things in life are not things.
Right. So the best things are not actual things.
Things.
Yeah.
Yeah. The most important things in life are not things.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I feel I should say more about that comparison I just made with you, but I think, yeah, maybe we are at the heart of it. Uh,
Mhm.
and
Well,
as it also has to do with intuition. It's like when you follow your intuition, when you speak it out loud. So he's a journalist, right? And he has a lot of credibility. But then it's easy to make a person who tells the truth, it's easy to make him into a conspiracy theorist, right?
mhm,
And then what I feel that he has done is like shown again and again that it was not just in his head, in a way.
mhm.
you know, he's not the only one. He's just like the representative of a lot of people who've been working on it, of course. But
And a lot of people who got ostracized and attacked by speaking what they felt was their truth are now being vindicated.
yeah,
Um, but we don't have to say, I told you so, or say, we just say quietly, I'm glad you came to that realization. Because, we all want to shine a light onto the truth in our own ways.
yeah,
We're all the same human family. Some people just need a louder alarm clock than others.
yeah, louder alarm clock. Yeah, yeah. So you're just making the point that it's important to not say "I told you so."
Yeah, it's not to make them feel bad or that. It's like, welcome, whoever you are, welcome.
Yeah,
Because at the end of the day, we walk in the same path. We don't want to make others feel bad about it, which is why, in the early days, there was a lot of, come on, look at this or understand this. And I think people myself included, was saying like, there's okay, I'm not gonna trespass on your space anymore. You need your own alarm clock.
Yeah.
When you're ready, welcome, and we'll have a conversation. If you're not ready, we won't.
I think that is important because that's what we've been used to also with religion, that someone else knows better than us and wants
Mhm.
us to know the truth. So
Yeah.
part of the problem is communicating like that, actually. And also just thinking that you have the truth is also a bit of a problem. I mean, it's important to hold on to your own truth, but then, also be open that there's probably more going on than you're aware of.
Yeah, and genuine truth never bangs down anyone's door.
Mm.
It only, you have to open the door and welcome it in.
Mm.
If it bangs on your door, it isn't truth because it'll only walk into a welcome space.
Ah, oh, that's good. Walk into a
Mhm.
welcoming space. Uh,
Mhm.
I like that. Okay, Kingsley Dennis, how are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm good. I'm feeling very well, and you're welcome to invite me back for another conversation. I'd be happy to.
I really would love that because then I'll be reading the Modern Seeker because I feel I am a Modern Seeker. I feel that's title is for me. I'm a Modern Seeker. Anyway, anything else you want to say in the end of this conversation?
Not really, just it's been a wonderful conversation. Thanks for listening and speaking with me. And I said, everyone listening and reading, find your way, go your way, and be in peace.
Yeah, be in peace. Thank you so much, Kingsley.
Pleasure.